Welcome back to the continuing conversation around art, placemaking, and how to create meaningful experiences in the built environment. I'm your host, Martha Weidman, CEO and co-founder of 9.Arts. Thanks for joining us today. And before we dive in, check out the ebook that we recently released. It's called The Art of Placemaking. It explores 5 fundamental principles for creating one-of-a-kind destinations through the power of art and culture. You can download your free copy at 9.arts.com/placemaking. I think you'll enjoy it. Today on the show, we've got Tyler Lundsgaard, the Vice President of Design and Construction at Experience Senior Living. And we met because we've had the opportunity to work with Tyler and his team on some really high impact senior living buildings and experiences truly that are going to create these neighborhoods and social spaces that will kind of blow your mind of where you might want to live and thinking about aging in place. Honestly, I'm there trying to pick out which apartment that I get into the future. It looks like an amazing place to live and be, wondering if I can move in now. So he's going to talk a little bit today about how to create luxury senior living environments that border on hospitality, but still establish this sense of home and a residential feel. And he's also going to talk about trends in senior living design, which I think some might surprise you. It's not the senior living spaces of the past that we used to know. And the role of art and design in senior living, from enhancing ADA compliance requirements to promoting engagement, to thinking about wayfinding, discovery, and in particular, conversations across generations, and bringing multiple groups of people together to visit and creating places that people want to be. So he'll talk about how we provide opportunities for residents to express their own personal assets and creativity, and these overarching themes that give a sense of community. So thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy the show. All right, Tyler Lundsgaard, welcome to ... Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Martha.
So I'd like to open with just an introduction for our listeners. Can you tell us more about who you are, what you do, and why it matters?
Yeah, so I'm Tyler Lundsgaard, Vice President of Design and Construction with Experience Senior Living Development. We are a Denver-based senior living developer as well as operator. Right now, we are working coast to coast and border to border on a variety of seniors products, everywhere from urban adjacent, what we traditionally think of as senior living, to urban infill, high rise, very luxury product. We think there's a very important need in the space for all these products, and we're excited to have such a breadth of offerings.
Well, it seems like a great market and a great opportunity to be in right now because, of course, the baby boomer generation, the largest generation in our history here in the United States, is growing, and many will be in need of the kind of services that your company provides. So it seems like a really smart sector to be in today's economy.
It is. It's fun too. And it's, I think that one of the fun challenges is figuring out how to bridge a gap between our current residents and the greatest generation for the next few years. And as you mentioned, getting into the baby boomer generation here shortly. Everybody has different expectations of what senior living is generationally. And so solving for a product that is desirable for both of those generations right now has been a fun challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah. And bridging the gap between those two, I'm sure, has its own challenges with regards to expectations, et cetera. So apart from growth in the sector, what are some of the trends that you're seeing?
I think one of the biggest trends we're seeing is the baby boomer generation is unwilling to compromise on their quality of life and living, moving into seniors communities. I remember visiting my grandparents growing up in the Midwest at assisted living homes that were more like nursing homes for a while. It was very institutional type of environment. And what we're seeing today is more along the lines of a luxury hospitality space for living to call home. And so some of those trends, as we talk here, obviously, large focus on art and technology being two of the larger components of change. as well as just general quality of life. And from an operator perspective, offerings to the residents in terms of services offered. We have some products that even have a 24-hour concierge like you'd see at the Westin, run to get dry cleaning, taking residents around town to any appointments they need. And it's just a lot more hands-on.
Sounds like the Four Seasons. I'm ready for that.
Me too.
Well, what are some of the things, just out of curiosity, that you think about when designing for that space? So I'm sure, when you're thinking about the baby boomer generation and kind of coming up as maybe that's who you're building for in the future, right? In kind of the next wave, from a design perspective, you said not being willing to compromise, thinking of a luxury hospitality type design. And could you give us some specific examples of what that feels like? And I'm happy to start too, because I remember walking through, like you mentioned, some senior living facilities as a child to visit my grandparents and great grandparents and aunties and uncles. And in that experience, sometimes it felt like there was a little bit of design that was almost childlike or kind of pandering in some way, like, popcorn or stand or ice cream. And I remember at some point someone telling me, like, I just want a bar. I just want a bar in the front so I can have my martini and sit by the pool, right? I don't want to feel like I'm, a kid. I would just want to feel like I am kind of living the best times of my life. So are there examples like that you come across that might feel more like luxury hospitality? Because certainly a martini by a pool does.
Absolutely. Well, that's an easy example. The bar in the lobby is a big hit everywhere. I think a word we try to use a lot is the dignification. And to your point of not making things feel childish. There's a fine balance, because there's also a little bit of whimsy in having a movie theater that's got a popcorn stand in the corner without making it feel like it's this contrived, a forced experience. And so as we're creating those places of luxury, I think some they seem very in the minutia, but these examples like lean rail for support walking down a corridor.
Right.
It can look one of two ways. It can look like you're in a hospital, or it can look like a very nice refined chair rail that's separating paint and wall covering. And so I think the intersection of luxury and healthcare comes at a very specific detail. And it's some of the things we're seeing are a large shift to RFID access control throughout our buildings. And part of that is ease and convenience, in that those RFID readers can let you into your unit, can monitor your smart fitness equipment, can track your wellness activity and report it back to healthcare professionals. It can, we get safety and security locked down on the building. But on the healthcare side, it's very difficult with arthritis as you age to turn a key in your door every day.
Right.
And so I think we see a lot of things that may seem simple on the surface, but definitely add to a quality of life quickly. As far as some luxury additions, we've got wellness suites with pools, smart fitness rooms, saunas and spas, hair salon, very, I think, typical offerings, but with us in the control of operations, operated in a way that gives you the experience of luxury with an amenity that may not be necessarily the differentiator, but the people and the practice are.
Well, it's all about people, right? Because we are designing spaces for people. And those examples that you gave were so specific and helpful, right? If it is hard to turn a key into a door, having a keyless entry is so important. And thinking about chair rail or just a lean rail, I remember my grandfather had those installed in his house so that he could get around because he didn't want to move. And it's so critical that we think about places for people, right? These are people who, no one's sick, right? You're just aging in a dignified way. And so having a place that feels residential, where the detail of that lean rail, maybe it's not a laminate, but it's actually a wood finish, right? So that it feels like it's part of a home and it feels like a place where you want to live and want to be. I think that's really what it's about when you're thinking of design. These are places for people and you're responding to their needs. So that all sounds really smart in terms of how you're approaching it.
And it's, pardon me, I think one of the bigger picture pieces that we're trying to solve for is everyone's been in their home. It's the same resistance you hear to senior living, over and over. Everyone's been in their home and doesn't want to leave their home. And so you're designing this building in space and creating a place that has, sometimes up to 250 personal homes inside of it. It needs to be enticing to bring people out of their single family home where they've been comfortable into this setting that is so different, yet it still needs to feel like a personal home and space. And finding that balance between a single family home and, Four Seasons or a nice lodging experience, especially when there's a care component that can be frightening, is so difficult. And so I think that, you're overly familiar with, the curation of that experience is so important to get right. And it has to be right from the second someone walks in that front door.
Absolutely. Because you're creating a space that feels like home, right? A residential type feeling and opportunity. And that can come into play through the details like the lean rail, that can come into play through details like art or styling, design, even the furniture selection is so important. So that really, I think, makes an impact to the overall experience and not only the experience, but the feeling that you get when you're there.
That feeling is, I think, the most important thing, primarily for residents and their families, and to get an occupied building, people tend to make the decision on how they feel about the space within 90 seconds of walking in the door.
Wow.
And so that first feeling is so critical. And then, not only to the future residents, but creating a space where families want to visit and grandchildren want to visit. So we both harken back to visiting family in those spaces. I didn't particularly want to visit family. It was not inviting and comfortable space to be and to enjoy. And so we have a lot of focus on creating opportunities and places that entice loved ones, the adult child, the grandchild, to spend time and hang out together.
Being in this business, I wonder, do you ever think about what you would want in a space where you might live when you're, I don't know what age you would target, but maybe at 75?
It's a hard balance to put yourself in the mind of someone who's 85 and has had a very different life experience than you. For me, I think places and spaces to spend time with my friends, old and new, are top of that list. Can always find activities to spaces.
Yeah, time with friends. And as you mentioned, places where, your family, your younger family, maybe kids and grandkids want to come visit, because mixed age opportunities or events are also what keep us young. So I think that's important that you have a sense of both, right? So the older generation can, impart some of their wisdom, and so that the younger generation can help the senior group feel more alive and more connected to what's happening in the world in the next phase.
Yeah, we prefer the term is community for our communities. Yeah. It's twofold. It's both the internal and the greater community, that we're focused on. The project that we're working on together down in Lone Tree, I think, is a great example. When we set out on early design in this this project, it was one of our guiding principles was the opposite of many senior living communities that exist, in trying to secure from the outside in and keep residents safe and secure by kind of shutting down to the outside and providing everything within. And we want to turn that on its head, and we want to invite the community into our space. We have a tremendous plaza connection to the Happy Canyon Creek Trail. It's a beautifully master planned community by Coventry and Ridgegate. And there's so much opportunity for interaction with the neighbors all around the site. And, whether that be from volunteering at the Tall Tales Ranch nonprofit next door for our residents, a way to give back, or those residents at Tall Tales giving back to our community and finding interaction and finding new connections across generations, just by given the surrounding uses and the urban nature of the product. It's such a unique and important opportunity to have.
Absolutely. Well, that is such a very specific thing to Colorado that you mentioned too. We have this great indoor-outdoor connection, but tying in with the local community and how your community can get engaged with Tall Tales. And that, I think, is something very specific to that location, right? You've got projects in Colorado, Florida, Ohio, Indiana, Virginia, Washington. Am I missing any?
I don't think so yet, but more on the way.
So you've got projects in all these different regions. How do you approach that same, appeal, that same community appeal when you're working in different places?
I think a very important thing for our entire platform operations and development is that we are not stamping out prototype communities. We are specific in our site selection, in the neighborhoods we want to be in and why we want to be in them. And we create a design that allows us at every location to interact with the neighborhood in one way or another that fits that space and place. At Richmond, for example, there's a YMCA next door. And so orienting our outdoor decks and community spaces so that residents can, enjoy at minimum a visual interaction with soccer fields and baseball fields and summer camps is a site-specific opportunity that you may not get in a lot of other places. And so I think it's every site's unique, and every design solution helps to influence how we interact there.
Well, it sounds like you've got some exciting growth on the horizon and a good strategy to integrate into the local economy and the local community in all of those places. I saw recently that Experience Senior Living Development announced 2 new projects. You've got the one in Spokane, the one in Richmond, and that your company has recently hired a couple of industry veterans from senior living. So what do you think that says about the current demand and your current strategy across the United States?
We see a tremendous amount of opportunity for in the senior living market, as well as for our experienced senior living as a whole. We're an opportunistic group. We are our parent company at NextCore Group has been one of the most opportunistic healthcare developers, over the last nearly 2 decades in the country. And having the general leadership and mentality and entrepreneurship of that core group of leaders really helps set the tone for our team, has been a tremendous asset. We are flexible and creative and a nimble group of developers in a space that I think has traditionally been a pretty rigid product type. And so when those two things come together, we see a lot of really unique opportunity to do some cool things and to change not just the market, but the lives of our residents and their families in the process.
Well, it's really exciting to see what you're doing. And we're really thrilled at 9.Arts to be a part of a couple of your really significant projects here in Colorado. And in that process, it's been really exciting to learn and think about the role that art can play in a senior living community and what the opportunities are that come along with these, really significant projects that you're putting together, including outdoor spaces and how can we help facilitate that outdoor indoor connection, including the impact of wayfinding, including, things like intuitive design and how to help ADA compliant things become actually more like features that you might find in a home or in a luxury hospitality design. So I think that art can be this incredible way to help appeal to a range of demographics and develop this comforting sense of place for these communities. What's your perspective on how art can help create community and engagement opportunities within experienced senior living developments?
I mean, I think there are so many answers to that question, but you brought up one that I know we've discussed a handful of times. That's wayfinding and kind of discovery process.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an important piece of having the great weather, as you mentioned in Colorado, talking specifically about Lone Tree and a campus that has some destinations on it. Is we can really encourage movement in residents, right, as they continue to age and create these walking paths that have interest at the end of them, for example, or some little aha and discovery moments, that allow visitors coming to visit a loved one or a friend for the first time. Oh, let me go show you this. This is so cool. And having that unique moment, at your home is such a is not something that you probably came from at your home. So right there's some of that enticement to have a destination at your community and find some unique spaces, and as well as just as look at a common courtyard with a pool and a bar and just creating a space that feels nice to sit in, right? Or is public and separated into more private space with interest, whether that's art and sculpture. We've got our amphitheater at Ridgegate, and finding a way to make an area for viewing the screen at the amphitheater a piece of art. They're just unique opportunities that it just takes some thought and time and the right team to figure out how to make them special.
Absolutely. Well, I know one of the things that we've talked about is appealing, like you said, appealing to a range of different demographics and creating a destination. So that might become this central point where art could be the conversation across generations when people are visiting. So, we've talked about examples like glass bluebirds in the trees and a map of where to find them so you can have an activity or almost like a little scavenger hunt when you arrive. So something to do with visitors as well as friends who are there. And then creating just a backdrop of a place that really gives you a sense of pride in being a part of it, and a sense of pride in a place that you feel like was created for you and that is your home.
Yeah, absolutely. And those, as we talk back to the greater community, those type of events, you mentioned the scavenger hunt, like you can just picture hosting an Easter weekend event, right, at the community with our outdoor space and connected to the greater trail system there, and inviting the entire community into the senior living community space. and having art play a role in kind of guiding that experience for the greater group, whether it's a scavenger hunt or just making place that everyone wants to spend time together.
Are there examples that you think of that you've maybe been to, seen, or experienced of really exceptional places? Maybe it was a senior living community, or maybe it was just a multi-generational mixed use community, but that there were things you saw that really connected people through the ages that felt timeless. Are there any of those that come to mind when you think of building great places um, keep as sort of a vision or a guiding light?
I think it may be a kitschy answer, but I always feel that way visiting museums. And I think it goes back to your comment about art connecting across generations. When you walk in a museum, I think, if you look around, is always persons of every generation, maybe staring at the same piece of art, all interpreting it, in their own manner, and however they may be there. But the focus in that setting is specifically that artwork, and everybody's fixated on it, regardless of what they know about it, what they don't know about it, who they know that's next to them, or who they don't know that's next to them. And I think that that speaks a lot towards the impact of art on space and place, and just sort of across generations. One of my favorite spaces is the Nelson Atkins Museum in the city, and I think there's so much scale on the exterior of that building, and I love the way that it starts to break up and create little nodes and pockets of space. It's so little but so much, all in the same setting.
That's a great example. When was the last time you were there?
It was probably about 5 years ago.
It really made an impression.
Yeah, it did. It's a beautiful space, and I down my design nerd rabbit hole with this too. But the Stephen Hall edition on that space, it starts to really change between day and night. The same building has such an immensely different feel and energy that it gives off. And I think being thoughtful about how things can change through the day or through the seasons is another huge piece of everything we do in the built environment.
What a cool story and a cool experience to be a part of and to see. Now, sounds like we should all check out the Nelson Atkins Museum.
Absolutely.
And one thing I wanted to touch on that we haven't spoken about yet is your background specifically, because I think it's very unique to have studied architecture, received an MBA, worked in civil engineering. And those are all very unique perspectives that must play a role in your day-to-day work.
It's been a fun journey here. Kind of fell into senior living, and it's been it was a good spot to land. The design background, I think paired with some, consulting and business education has been very helpful. I'd always known I wanted to be in development, but I'm kind of took a little different path than a lot of the finance background and analytical background to land here. I've been very fortunate to be part of a lot of fun projects along the way. I was able to, before joining Experience Senior Living, was able to spend a little time working at consulting for Meow Wolf on their Denver project here. And that was really eye-opening.
Talk about ADA compliance challenges.
Oh man, that and the fire department. They were that is such an extreme end of real estate and art and everything, and being able to kind of see that firsthand and help problem solve around that. I think just it opens up perspective on what a big problem may be, and finding a solution for those problems. I think that's been oddly very helpful in senior living. You talk about ADA and fire and life safety compliance, completely different application of some of those skill sets, but a lot of creative problem solving.
That's amazing. Well, I love that you went from Meow Wolf to creating really unique, community-driven, luxury senior living experiences. And for our listeners who aren't familiar, Meow Wolf is a creative arts entertainment destination. It's kind of like a museum, kind of like Disney, kind of like Willy Wonka, all rolled into one. And if you haven't been, you should definitely check it out. Right now, there are locations, the original location in Santa Fe, there's one in Las Vegas, and one in Denver, Colorado. So, Tyler, anything you want to add about that, about how you describe Meow Wolf and that transition to where you are today?
As many times as I've tried to describe Meow Wolf, I feel like I never do it justice. Couldn't agree more. Need absolutely worth a visit. I've yet to visit Las Vegas, and it's they do such a good job of making each of those spaces unique, and it's just a really exciting experience. I think every time, and that goes back again. Harkening back to the other conversation, that so much opportunity for discovery and finding new, weird, quirky, fun things at every one of those places.
Yeah, I feel like you can go back and never see the same thing twice. Well, are there any other things that you want to share with the audience, Tyler, about trends in the sector, or things that are on your mind as you're thinking about designing for these future spaces and places?
Yeah, I think again a similar theme from today, but really starting to push that generational envelope is on the horizon, more so than just being part of a younger, greater community. But we're really starting to see some products that are shared multifamily and senior living communities, sharing a lobby, sharing amenity space. And ultimately being able to share, with one another and find those interactions and balances in kind of a, internal little ecosystem at the community. There is,
Smart.
it's very interesting. I think if you had asked me at, in my early 20s, if I was going to live in a building that was shared with seniors, I never would have thought about that, but I think there's a lot of really fun opportunity there. If you think to times just sitting talking to a random stranger, and all of a sudden that can take place, and having a great conversation and learning so much, and the opportunity for that to take place inside of your own community, kind of at your own discretion, and moderate that interaction in your own ways. Pretty neat and unique space. And then, as we talk art, I think the other thing that we're very cognizant of and really trying hard to implement is art is not just a 2D or 3D, piece at the communities. And so finding a way for residents and anyone for that matter to showcase other arts is extremely important, you think, in the space, whether that's a resident who has been playing violin for 50 years and wants to teach a master class, or a retired executive chef who wants to express in the culinary arts and teach friends and family and still have the opportunity to do that themselves. So providing a demonstration kitchen or somewhere that people can continue to express themselves, with the arts that are true and dear to them, I think is extremely important and something that we're very focused on solving for.
Oh, that's really cool. And we have used the term when we're working on larger scale developments and placemaking projects that is called ABCD for your approach, is asset-based community development. And that's really what you're describing. How do you take the assets of a community and bring those to the forefront? So if you have someone living there who's a theater director, then let's put on a play. And I love the way that you're approaching it, of really thinking about the assets of the residents and providing a platform where they can bring their talents to the table and enrich the entire community and neighborhood.
Yeah, I've heard that acronym used before, and to make sure to remember to promote that in our communities in that way. Such a great way to think about assets is, it's so easy to forget that people themselves are everyone's biggest asset, for the community and for every part of this everyday life at the end of the day.
Oh, awesome. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to hear your perspective on building communities, bringing the assets of the residents to life, designing for this new luxury senior living hospitality environment that we're moving into, and most importantly, thinking about the ways that we can create conversations across generations through art, culture, and design. So thank you so much, Tyler, for joining us on the show today. It was great to have you with us.
Okay. Thank you, Martha. I appreciate being here.
Thanks again for tuning in to ... And for more information about our guest and what we chatted about, check out the show notes at 9.arts.com/podcast. Keep in mind that's all spelled out NINEDOTARTS.com/podcast. To keep up with our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to 9.arts on YouTube or subscribe to ... wherever you get your podcasts, and check out our new free ebook, The Art of Placemaking, where we break down the creative placemaking process and share 5 key tips for transforming spaces into memorable destinations through the power of art and culture. You can find that at 9.arts.com/placemaking. And if you're looking to transform your next project with art, drop us a line. Let's talk at 9.arts.com. Here's to wishing you continued creativity until the next time.